The screws are being tightened for Mick Schumacher, as the Haas drivers not only failed to match his teammate, but he also developed a habit of crashing into walls. In another part of the paddock, though, there's some trouble brewing for Toto Wolff, as his comments have struck a nerve with the former world champion. So in today's video, we're going to discuss this and everything else that's fresh in the world of Formula One. First up, time is running out for Mick Schumacher. Formula One is a fickle sport, as there's never enough time for any newcomer to fully adjust to their surroundings. Like, you're either fast from the get-go, or you get replaced by dozens of other top drivers clamoring for a seat on the grid. We've seen it happen time and time again with drivers like Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly, who had decorated junior careers but failed to produce the same results on the big stage. Of course, if you're a paid driver like Lance Stroll or Nicholas Latifi, then you've got all the time in the world. Mick Schumacher, however, sits firmly between these two categories. On one hand, he's a young talent who's won the Formula 2 championship, but on the other hand, he's also the son of Michael Schumacher, who's arguably the greatest driver in the history of the sport. So despite being so young, he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders just on the basis of his name alone. Obviously, that doesn't excuse him from any criticism, but there's still so much legacy involved that people hesitate to jump on that bandwagon. With that said, the 2022 season hasn't proven to be very lucky for the German. Last year, he was making quick work of his teammate Nikita Mazepin. This year, however, a more experienced teammate in the form of Kevin Magnussen's proven to be a tough competitor. In fact, we've hardly seen Mick outperform the Dane in any races this season. That's not the only issue, though. The real conundrum for the 23-year-old this season is finding a way to keep that Haas under his control and avoiding the walls. Next, Steiner calls for Schumacher to get his act together. It's been a real challenge for Mick Schumacher to navigate through this season's races, and despite the fact that he's come very close to scoring his first points in the sport, taking unnecessary risks and wrecking the car's been his undoing for most of it. For instance, he suffered an enormous crash at Monaco that ripped his car's chassis in half. Plus, this came only a couple of months after his massive shunt in Saudi Arabia, which ruled him out for the rest of the weekend. Now, thankfully, he's come out unscathed on both occasions, but according to his team boss, Gunther Steiner, he just can't keep doing this. Speaking to the press, the Haas boss said that Schumacher needs to put together a string of results without crashing, for both his and the team's sake. Apparently, Haas has already exceeded its provision for parts for this season, and while they're not running out of money or anything, there's obviously a limit to how much new stuff they can bring week in and week out. So it seems like there's some real pressure on Mick to start performing, and perhaps bag some points for his team too. With that said, it's not like the German isn't trying. Like, he came super close to scoring a bunch in Baku, but an engine failure foiled his chances. Besides, there's been plenty of other races where he's performed exceptionally well and only narrowly missed on a top 10 finish. According to him, though, this season's felt like a complete reset as compared to last year. Not only does the German feel like he's a rookie again, but it's also harder for him to adapt to these new cars as compared to someone with more experience like Magnussen. Again, this shouldn't excuse him from any criticisms, as other drivers in his position like Yuki Tsunoda continue to impress despite the new challenges. Having said that, Schumacher's still hopeful for recovery and thinks that it's only a matter of time until he's back into the groove of things and scoring some crucial points for Haas. And now, Andretti fights back against Toto Wolff's remarks. If you've been out of the loop on what's happening outside of the racetrack, then Andretti's efforts to enter Formula One have probably escaped you as well. Basically, Michael Andretti, who's the son of former F1 champion Mario Andretti, is trying to convince the FIA to set up the 11th team on the grid. For context, Andretti Autosport's already a household name in other racing series like IndyCar, so they're no slouches when it comes to this stuff. However, the response that they've gotten from the paddock has been nothing but lukewarm. In fact, some team principals like Toto Wolff and Christian Horner have actually questioned the team's credibility, saying that they haven't displayed anything to suggest that they're gonna bring more money into the sport. Of course, this is in reference to the dilution of prize pool money, which would then get divided among 11 teams instead of 10. And while there's a fund that's already established solely to combat this dilution, is apparently not good enough for the other teams. So, Mario Andretti's retaliated against Wolff's comments, saying that he finds the criticism very disrespectful, as they've been active in motorsports for much longer than he has. The former F1 champ also said that it's disappointing that other teams look down upon any new entrant. Oh, and obviously, he addressed the financial concerns too, by saying that they've got credible partners who are willing to fund the project, and continue to do so for the long haul. Up next, the F1 management isn't too sure about Andretti Autosport. Now, while Michael Andretti's been running around the paddock to try and convince the F1 management, the response hasn't been that great. Earlier in the year, it seemed like they were all for having a new team on the grid. However, as time's gone by, that enthusiasm has also worn down, perhaps due to the negative reaction from the rest of the paddock. As a matter of fact, the F1 CEO, Stefano Domenicali, has even said that the sport needs to protect the teams and that a new entry would have to be something super significant to make sense. On the other hand, though, the FIA seems to be much more open to the idea of adding another team into the mix. Also, Apparently, Andretti's been talking to the FIA president, Mohammed bin Sulayem, too, saying that the association's very open to the idea and that they've fulfilled all the requirements for a new team, and now it's only a matter of getting an entry fee so they could actually start the hiring process. And now, Bernie Ecclestone advises Hamilton to call it quits. It's been a strange season for Lewis Hamilton so far. Not only does he seem less confident on the track, but he's also not adapted to the car as well as his teammate, and now it seems like there are some serious doubts over the 7-time world champion's future. For context, Hamilton's currently sitting 6th in the Drivers' Championship, which is an unfamiliar position for him. On top of that, he's also 34 points behind teammate George Russell, whose run of top 5 finishes has astonished everyone in the paddock. In fact, there's a chance that the British driver could go winless in 10 races for the first time in his career if he doesn't cross the checkered flag first at Silverstone. And now, even the former F1 boss Bernie Ecclestone's weighed in on the 37-year-old's recent form. Speaking in an interview with the Daily Mail, he said that Hamilton should sell his position to Toto Wolff for $20 million and consider retiring from the sport. Ecclestone also claimed that Mercedes have already thought of this option, and perhaps it's time for Lewis to move on to other things while he's still on top. Of course, Hamilton isn't one to back down from challenges, so it'd be a massive shock to everyone if he does decide to follow the former F1 chief's advice. Besides, it's not like he's performed horribly in the races. In fact, if anything, he's been pretty consistent and has only been bogged down by sheer bad luck. For instance, his performance in Catalonia and Canada were nothing but spectacular, so maybe the talks of him losing his mojo are a bit premature at this point. Finally, Toto Wolff happy with Hamilton on future prospects. If Mercedes had some qualms with the 7-time champion, Toto Wolff would have spoken out, as he's not someone who bottles up his feelings, and according to him, they're fully on board with having him on the team for the 2023 season. Now, obviously, Hamilton's been there since the early days and has led the team to 8 constructors' titles, so it would be a bit unfair to give up on him so early. Also, having a dip in form's a normal part of the sport, and when you've been doing it for well over a decade, you're bound to slip up here and there. Besides, it's not like Mercedes has the fastest car on the grid. Like, at their current pace, a podium is probably their standard, and it seems like Wolff agrees to that notion too, as according to him, the Silver Arrows couldn't have wished for a better driver pairing this season. What do you think though? Is Lewis Hamilton getting too old for the sport, or has he still got plenty of racing left in the tank? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.